Okay, hi everyone. It's a real pleasure to introduce the first talk, which will be by Egle Padaigaite, and she'll be talking about protective factors involved in promoting mental health resilience in a really important group, which is offspring of depressed parents. So over to you, Egle.
Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, fantastic.
Great. Could I just ask, will we get copies of the slides afterwards?
Yeah, we're going to, because we're recording, they'll be on the recording, but we will also ask students to provide them as well.
Okay. So hello everyone, my name is Egle and I'm a second-year PhD student at Cardiff University Division of Psychological Medicine and Clinical Neurosciences, and my topic is mental health resilience in adult children of depressed parents. Sorry, yes. Okay. So we know that about 1 in 5 children in the UK lives with a depressed parent, and these children are more likely to develop depression and other mental health problems. However, some of them do not develop mental health difficulties or do so only temporarily, and these individuals may be perceived as demonstrating mental health resilience, a concept that unfortunately still lacks universally accepted definition, but previously it has been defined as special trait, dynamic process, or positive or better than expected mental health outcome. So this mental health resilience observed in individuals at high risk for mental health problems may imply that certain protective factors may buffer parental depression-related effects. However, evidence of these protective factors is limited, and it's unclear if they can sustain good mental health in the long run. So today I'm going to present preliminary results from systematic literature review, focus group, and high-risk cohort analysis. So as you may see, our literature review aimed to identify protective factors for mental health resilience in offspring of depressed parents. And we screened 5 databases and identified nearly 10,000 studies, of which almost half of them were duplicates and had to be removed. But then we screened 5,250 abstracts and 196 full texts. And finally, we included 90 studies in the review. So we're still going through data extraction and quality assessment of these studies. So these results are very preliminary, but overall, we identified more than 80 protective factors from childbirth to adulthood, of which individual, social, and family factors were most studied, while lifestyle, biological, and school factors were least studied. For our focus group, we had 2 aims. First one was to define mental health resilience, and second one to identify most important protective factors that my quantitative analysis could focus on. 5 young adults, 4 females, and 1 male participated in our focus group. They were 24, 30 years old. All of them were adult children of depressed parents, and all of them had mental health problems in the past. So regarding the definition of mental health resilience, young adults thought that resilience could be defined as a process or as a trait, but not as an outcome, since they didn't like the idea that they cannot be or become resilient if they had mental health problems in the past. And they also pointed out the role of self-efficacy, which is believing that you can overcome difficulties in determining if individual would develop resilience or mental health problems after being exposed to adversity. Regarding key protective factors for mental health resilience, as you may see from the illustration on the right, young adults thought that individual factors such as good coping skills, emotional strength, and self-efficacy, and also lifestyle factors such as self-care, good sleep, and exercise are particularly important in adulthood, while external factors such as social network and community support, and also biological factors were considered as less important. So there were many very good points raised during focus group, but overall take-home message could be that resilience starts from within. Regarding high-risk cohort analysis, that we did. So Kolshap and colleagues in 2016 identified a number of child, family, social, and lifestyle protective factors that were associated with mental health resilience in adolescents. So we aim to test if the same protective factors identified in adolescents are still relevant in young adulthood 8 years later. We use the same high-risk cohort as authors did, known as Early Prediction of Adolescent Depression Study, which has 4 assessments over 11-year study periods. And it is a high-risk cohort since 337 parents with recurrent depression and their offspring participated in the study. And we assessed number of protective factors at age 12 and outcomes at age 23. So we used a good mental health definition to derive 4 different mental health outcome groups in our study. So for example, individuals in sustained good mental health group, they did not meet the criteria for psychiatric diagnosis, demonstrated no or low number of depressive and behavioral symptoms, and also did not demonstrate suicidal ideation or self-harm over the whole study period. So overall 4 assessments. Individuals in recovery group, they did not have good mental health as adolescents, but they had good mental health as adults. Adult onset mental health problems group had good mental health during the first 3 assessments in adolescents, but developed mental health problems as adults, and chronic poor mental health never met the criteria and never had good mental health. So we were mostly interested in protective factors for sustained good mental health. So as you may see from the slide, 2016 study examined number of protective factors from different categories such as family, individual, social, and external. And they found that these 5 were associated with sustained mental health in adolescents. So parent positive expressed emotion, co-parent support, self-efficacy, frequent physical exercise, and peer relationship quality. And we looked into the same protective factors, but actually we found that only one of them remains significant, parent positive expressed emotion. So what we found was that if parents were more positive towards their child, this child was almost 3 times more likely to have sustained good mental health as adults. So it may seem that these protective factors identified in adolescents are actually not important in adulthood, but actually it's not the case, because when we looked into when we compared protective factors in all 4 mental health outcome groups, we found that most of them are still relevant, but not for sustained good mental health or recovery groups as we would expect, but for adult onset mental health problems instead. So if you would look into this table, you can see that individuals in adult onset mental health problems group, they score highest on protective factors such as co-parent support, peer relationship quality, and frequent physical exercise compared to all other mental health outcome groups. And these are actually statistically significant. So it could be that these protective factors can actually delay mental health problems in this population. So overall, it seems that protective factors identified in adolescents seem to postpone rather than prevent or help to recover from mental health problems. And we found only limited evidence for external factors having enduring protective effects. It could be that protective factors may only work for a limited time or could be developmental stage specific. And of course, other factors such as individual or partner related factors may be more important in adulthood. But overall, it seems that exposure to protective factors in adolescence does not guarantee good mental health outcomes in adulthood. So next, we plan to do analyses that are less affected by small sample sizes and look into better than expected mental health outcomes using residual scores. And of course, examine other protective factors identified by systematic review and focus groups, such as genetics, physical health, stress response, emotional regulation, mental flexibility, and inhibitory control. And of course, we will try to replicate our results in ALSPAC, another population cohorts using mental health resilience trajectories. And we also aim to look into underlying mechanisms and evidence for causal effects of these protective factors identified. So finally, I would like to thank my supervisors for their guidance and support. Also, Vicky and Jessica for helping me with data access and systematic literature review. And of course, Mental Health Research UK for funding this project. Thank you.
Thanks so much. That's really, that's great. And you're spot on time. Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're seeing there's some claps for you. So questions. Has anybody got a question? Ah, Jennifer has. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really interesting and really clear presentation. I was wondering if you could tell me a bit more about the planned analysis when you were saying about the better than expected scores, so kind of resilience scores. Will you be sort of benchmarking that against some kind of exposure to stress, and how exactly were you thinking of operationalizing that?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Very good question, actually. So we plan to do residual scores analysis. As you said, we will use residual scores for different symptom counts for different conditions. So we plan to look into MDD, mood-related resilience, also behavioral-related resilience using conduct disorder and oppositional deviant disorder symptom counts, and also anxiety-related mental health, anxiety-related resilience using generalized anxiety scores. So we're going to use a risk exposure, which is not stress in our case, but parental depression. So we plan to use parental depression, age at onset, parent depression severity, and family history of depression as predictors, and use these three mentioned symptom counts as outcomes, and then take the residual scores, and we will use these residual scores as outcomes in our analysis. Yes. Did I answer your question? Okay, great.
I don't know if Jen had a follow-up. I know we've got Peter as well with his hand up. Okay, so if we go to Peter next, please.
Yeah, no, brilliant presentation. It was just, I don't think I was reading the table properly, but am I right in thinking then that the group with sustained good mental health had lower protective factors than the group that then had adult onset? And I just wanted to get your views a bit more on why that might be, because I guess on the surface it's kind of a counterintuitive almost. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Very good question. Actually, we were quite surprised by results as well. So that's, I mean, I don't have answer why would it be, but we thought that maybe these factors might delay. That's why we thought that these factors might delay mental health problems rather than prevent it. And this is interesting because we also did some descriptive analysis for all these four categories, and what we found that actually adult onset group had looked quite good in demographic characteristics, such as their parents were quite educated, they were from higher socioeconomic status, class, and also most of them were still living with a parent as well. So it could be that actually it's compounded by living with a parent, but at the end, it still doesn't explain why they still live with a parent and why they develop mental health problems despite being supported in multiple domains. So this is something that we plan to look into more detail in the future. But maybe you have some ideas.
Not really. I guess, I don't know, I wondered whether there's some other kind of unmeasured difference there, perhaps, that is set. Maybe there's something else going on with that sustained good mental health group that hasn't been picked up by the other protective factors but sets them apart. But that's great, you're looking at it more. I mean, odd findings like that come up, don't they? So if it did kind of, I did wonder about it.
Right, yeah. Really good question. Any other questions? Something that I wondered about is whether you have any patient and public involvement in the study. And through Cardiff, I was just interested that you had your focus group, and I was just thinking it might be really good to stay in touch with them, to as they were quite a small group, but they're probably very interested in your study. I just wondered if you had any involvement of people who are depressed as kind of, you know, advisors around you.
Well, yeah, thank you for your question. Actually, we had the focus group for now, and now we run the analysis, but I think we will get in touch once again when we will try to develop some kind of guidelines or something like that as a result of my PhD.
Great. Juliana.
Thanks, Vanessa. I mean, you picked up the point, and I think that's really good. It probably linked back to just the interest that Peter had in that, what seemed like an unusual finding. I mean, I know I'm talking to the converted here. It's actually quite nice to have people involved all the way through, because they can kind of they can really support you in understanding what those results are. And it could be just an anomaly, it could be, you know, there's just bits that we've not measured, or it could be social desirability in terms of what counts as good mental health. It could be any of those things. And I just think it's really nice for all researchers, myself included, to not always assume that we have to come up with all the answers. Actually, just those who have different types of experiences being involved in that. So I think, yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you very much. Very good point, actually. Maybe it would be easier to understand results with the help of those who actually experienced it. Very good point. Thank you.
Good. So a tip from us. Thank you so much, Stephen, Egle. That's really fantastic.